And we're going to get started in just a minute. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Childcare Aware of Minnesota's January 2022 Tell Talk with our special guest, Kelly Kazik, Preschool Development Grant Workforce Specialist at the Minnesota Department of Education. Tell Talks, or Topics for Early Learning Leaders, are monthly webinars for early childhood program leaders to facilitate solutions-focused discussions for your questions about the early childhood field in Minnesota. These one-hour webinars do not meet the standards for a formal professional development training event, and participants will not receive a certificate of completion. Tell Talks are designed as a community-building opportunity for leaders to engage and share ideas surrounding a specific content area. The Tell Talks team consists of Nikki Lepowski, Quality Improvement Coordinator, and myself, Christy Berg, Workforce Advising Coordinator. We work with Corey Woosley and Katie Hoffman at Childcare Aware of Minnesota to bring you Tell Talks. A couple of our recent topics have included identifying support for staff recruitment, retention, and development, and Parent Aware, Minnesota's quality rating and improvement system. Coming up on February 17th, Marissa Albritton, Online Learning Program Manager with Eager to Learn, will join us to share information about the new and improved online learning experiences available through Eager to Learn. Please visit the Program Leaders page of our website to view previously recorded Tell Talks. After today's presentation, you will receive an email from me with the PowerPoint slides and with any other resources shared. What is Childcare Aware of Minnesota? Childcare Aware of Minnesota supports the professional growth of early childhood educators with professional development opportunities, Eager to Learn online training, grants, Parent Aware, and scholarships. We are a resource and referral network for early childhood education in Minnesota. We assist families in finding a quality childcare program and keep the community informed on the importance of quality childcare. Childcare Information Services is a department within our organization that specializes in statewide information sharing and assisting families who are looking for childcare. CCIS sends a welcome packet to new programs and surveys programs every 3 years on business policies and tuition rates. The rates are confidential and can influence CCAP reimbursement rates. CCIS receives calls from program leaders across Minnesota with general business questions and can route you to the appropriate person to contact. Childcare Aware partners with Center for Inclusive Childcare, which provides free relationship-based professional development, including support, modeling, and resources for childcare programs throughout Minnesota. A coach will spend time with your program, providing support focusing on the successful inclusion of children with challenging behaviors or special needs, implementing health and safety best practices, and supporting the unique needs of infants and toddlers in your care. Achieve, the Minnesota Center for Professional Development, supports individual, trainer, and RBPD membership applicants and approves courses and training events. The Achieve MNCPD website has several resources to share, including a job board, policy info, Minnesota Career Lattice, and a virtual career guide. The Tell Talks team partners with several organizations to offer coordinated resources surrounding early care and education needs. And as always, participants of Tell Talks are encouraged to ask questions, make contributions throughout the presentation, and engage in dialogue with our presenter. We can take you off of mute to share your ideas and questions, or we can read your comments from the chat box. We will be recording today's Tell Talk, just FYI. And now we're excited to turn it over to our presenter, Kelly Kazik from MDE. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Kelly.
Thank you. All right, I am going to try to turn on my screen share. And you will let me know if that worked or didn't work. We're good to go. Awesome. Okay. Well, hello, and thank you for having me here today. Like Christy said, my name is Kelly Kazik, and I work at the Minnesota Department of Education on the Preschool Development Grant. My title is Workforce Collaboration Specialist. And so I'm super excited to be able to be here today to talk to you about the resources that are available to you to help support educators working with young multilingual learners and their families through the work that we've been doing on the preschool development grant. So my next slide, are you seeing my next slide? Am I going? I'm good. Okay. Today, as I share these resources for supporting multilingual learners and their families, I'm going to be emphasizing 3 of Minnesota's 10 commitments to equity that we focus on here at MDE, prioritizing equity, starting early, and improving conditions for learning. And we believe these resources support the commitment to prioritizing equity by helping early learning programs across the state build capacity for providing equitable access to language supports for young multilingual learners. And we recognize the importance of starting early, as we all know, that the early years are an important time for building foundational language skills. And we believe that these resources will improve conditions for learning by helping programs empower parents using language-focused family engagement, and by providing professional development resources for coaches, trainers, and early educators. All right. So today we're going to look at the resources that are available to support programs and staff working with young multilingual learners and their families, and highlight the WIDA early years resources. And so before we dig into the resources, I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the reason why we're talking about supporting multilingual learners here today. As many of you know, Minnesota has developed the Knowledge and Competency Framework for early educators. And this framework defines the skills, knowledge, and abilities required of people working with young children. And having a consistent set of expectations for all people working with young children is one step toward the commitment of providing equity for all young learners. However, the demographics in our state have changed and are changing, and it became clear that in order for the Knowledge and Competency Framework to continue to be a unifying tool, new competencies were needed. And so with feedback from you all and all of the early childhood community, 3 new competency areas were developed to address the needs of our changing communities. And so in 2019, Minnesota partnered with WIDA Early Years to help develop the competencies around supporting multilingual learners and their families. The WIDA organization is part of the Wisconsin Center of Education Research, also known as WIRSER, which is part of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And they're really viewed as leaders in the field of language development. And so WIDA Early Years is a division of the WIDA Consortium, which serves K-12 schools, and whose work aligns with our commitment to equity of starting early. So we renewed that partnership with WIDA in the fall of 2021 to be able to provide all early educators and early education programs access to the WIDA Early Years resources so that we could help build educator capacity to support multilingual learners across the state and improve conditions for learning, and really be able to provide you all with the resources to help with the new competencies for working with multilingual learners and their families. And you'll see, some of you probably are aware that we've updated the preschool version, and it's available on the MDE Early Learning Services website on the page about the Knowledge and Competency Framework, and you can see the cover there. We're also, I'm super happy to tell you, in the process of updating the infant and toddler version and the family childcare version. So those 3 covers you see there, I'm hoping to have all of that work done by the end of summer. So it'll just be so nice to have the consistency with all of the versions having all of the same content. So we're super excited. And you can see, I put the links here, and I think Christy said you'll get that afterward. There's a 1-page summary of these versions and an informational handout that you can download. And all of that's available on the website. So super excited about that. Whoa. Did not mean to go that far. All right. So just really quickly, I wanted to give everybody an overview of kind of the plan that we've been putting together to help build educator capacity to support our young multilingual learners. And so first off, you can see we have our membership to WIDA Early Years, which includes free access to a variety of resources, including the online courses that some of you maybe have already been looking at. And then secondly, we've developed a leadership team to help guide this work by providing input and helping to promote resources, being involved in evaluating the effectiveness of what we're doing, and just helping us really be connected with the folks doing the work. And then thirdly, we've recruited a cohort of trainers. I also call them support specialists that come from a variety of different program types, and many of them have previous WIDA early years training or extensive experience working with multilingual learners. And they're all working with Cindy Check, who we call our WIDA ambassador, and they're working on developing training and support and providing feedback on the program and giving us information on, what educators need. They're giving us input on training ideas and what support can look like. And again, helping us evaluate the learning that's happening with the resources that are available. So really trying to have that trainer input too, as far as, as we continue to create and roll out more supports. And as I mentioned, we've hired Cindy Check, who we call our WIDA ambassador. And in her role, Cindy helps support the trainer cohort. And also she's working to help identify program professional development needs and help connect trainers to programs that would be a good fit. And so Cindy's just been a wonderful resource and asset to the work that we're doing. And Cindy comes to us from, her background is early childhood coordinator working in school districts. And then lastly, we have made many updates to the MDE Early Learning Services webpage for supporting multilingual learners. And I'll kind of talk more about all of that here in a minute. All right. So, as I said before, Minnesota has renewed their partnership with the WIDA Early Years, and the resources they are providing complement the knowledge and competency framework because they were actually directly involved in the creation of those competencies when the knowledge and competency framework was having the new sections put in there. And it's all based on the WIDA Early Years Essential Actions, which value the can-do philosophy. And on the WIDA website, they say, at WIDA, we believe that everyone brings valuable resources to the education community. Children and youth who are linguistically and culturally diverse bring a unique set of assets that have the potential to enrich the experiences of all learners and educators. Educators can draw on these assets for the benefit of both the learners themselves and for everyone in the community. And by focusing on what language learners can do, we send a powerful message that children and youth from diverse linguistic and cultural backgrounds contribute to the vibrancy of our early childhood programs in K-12 schools. And I just think that's such a beautiful philosophy and really emphasizes why we are supporting this work here in Minnesota. And I also just wanted to note, WIDA is moving to the term multilingual learners because they feel it's a more accurate description of a lot of the learners, because often they're learning more than two languages. And so you still might see the term dual language learner used, but we are trying to move that to the multilingual learners. So does anybody have any questions about any of that information? I'm going to give you lots of information today and it might be overwhelming, but I'll just stop and pause, and Nikki will let me know if anyone has questions. Take a breath. All right. So I think we'll just kind of dive into the resources a little bit more. So some of you may be familiar with the WIDA Early Years resources, and some of you may be just learning about them. But regardless of your starting point, there are a lot of resources, and programs may find themselves wondering, where do we begin and how do these resources work together? And I'm hoping that I will be able to answer some of those questions for you today with the information that I'm sharing. And if not, I will bring your questions back to our team and definitely find a way to get those questions answered. The important thing to know is that there's not a one right way to begin or continue this work, and that the resources are meant to help reach programs where they're at and be reflective of your program and staff needs. And so you can kind of see there's an example sample learning pathway here of the different tools and resources that programs might start looking at. But definitely a core component of that in a good starting place are those WIDA early years e-learning courses. And again, I'll just say it again, these are available for free to everybody. So I really want to put it out there. Please take a look at them and use them. And I hope that you find them beneficial. We're going to just kind of take another closer look then at those courses. But before we do that, I should probably tell you how to access them. So what you have to do in order to get to the courses and to the other resources, first is to create an account with WIDA Early Years. And so here I've got the links for you for creating an account. And so one thing that you are going to want to just make sure to take note of is that you must create an account first. And then there's a separate link for where you go to log in. We've had some people that kind of were confused about that. So just wanted to make sure I pointed that out. And then as you can see, there's a spot for existing users. And so if for some reason you have a K-12 account, because maybe you're working with a district that has a K-12 account, you can actually log in as an existing user, and there's a way to link up your WIDA early years account to your K-12 account. And we really want to encourage, when you're working with your staff and working with educators, that everybody creates their own account, because that way we have a record of that, and that's how folks are going to be able to get their clock hour forms and participation forms and stuff too. All right. And also wanted to let people know too that the Preschool Development Grant is funding this and supporting this membership for a year. And we will then evaluate our future partnership needs, but that's going to be based on the feedback that we get from programs and program leaders and the educators that are using the resources. So the more that they're used and the more experience people have with them, the more feedback that you all can give us is really going to help us to know what the communities need and what we should do in the future. So we will appreciate your feedback. All right. And this is just kind of an overview of the WIDA Early Years portal. And there is a flyer that we have, and I give it to Nikki and she can put it in the chat, but it also, all of these links are available on the website as well. And you'll have the access to them when you get the slides. But I just wanted to let everybody know too, that all of these courses have been approved and developed. There's even the webinars that we have are approved and developed. And so when you go in and you've created your account, then you log into the WIDA secure portal, you're going to see these three little icons across the top of your screen. The first one where the yellow arrow is how you access the learning courses. And then the middle one are where the webinars are stored. And then the last one with the book are additional resources. And so the two webinars that we have in there for you to view, if you'd like, are the kickoff webinar that we did in October and the introductory to the Knowledge and Competency Framework webinar that we did in November. So there's 2 hours worth of webinars. And like I said, we did get them approved and developed. And so the link that you see underneath here is to a webinar evaluation form that if you would like us to add that to, if you would like to view the webinars and then have it put on your learning record, I just ask that people fill out that webinar evaluation form and then shoot me an email so that I know that you've done it so I can review it and then put it on your learning record. And then you'll also see the access to the courses. And again, if you provide us with your develop numbers, then we're able to match that. So the WIDA early years courses doesn't have a spot in it for when you're completing and making your account to give us your develop number. So we have to do that separately. So that link that you see under there that says provide your develop ID number is what we have people use to provide us with their develop number. That link is also on our website. But then that way, Cindy, our ambassador, goes in monthly and she downloads the learning record reports from the WIDA early years, and then she matches it up to people's developed numbers. And then she can use that information to put that learning on your learning record if that's what people are looking for. I hope that made sense. I'll stop for a question or any questions right now. But we really are trying to do the best that we can to get everybody the kind of credit they need depending on the kind of program that they're working in. And so hopefully this is beneficial to people. All right, I can keep going. So let's take a little bit closer look then at those e-learning courses that are available. So you'll see that there are 6 courses. There's dual language learners and their families. And this course really explores the strengths and resources and here's where you'll see that dual language learner term used. That will be transitioning. But this course explores the strengths and resources that dual language learners and their families bring to early childhood programs. There's a course, Dual Language Learners with Disabilities, which provides essential information for supporting the needs of multilingual learners or dual language learners with disabilities. There's a course that is called Making Connections, which provides an introduction to tools and resources used to plan instruction for young multilingual children. There's a course called Scaffolding Language Learning, which explores ways to scaffold children's language learning and development. There's a course called Promising Practices, which illustrates examples of how to implement the WIDA early years essential actions. And then another course called Are We Ready? What K-12 educators can do to support young multilingual learner children. And this webinar really helps early childhood programs that are working in conjunction with school-based programs. It really emphasizes the collaboration that needs to happen between EC folks and elementary school folks for supporting those transitions to kindergarten. And there's a webinar and a downloadable companion guide, just really helpful. And then again, each of these courses has 1 hour of content, but we've working with the WIDA early years people, it's based on 1 hour of content and 2 hours of seat time for doing the reflection and the reading and the work that you need to do when you're taking the courses. And so there's a total of 3 hours that would go on a developed learning record for folks who do the courses. And I think that's it for all the early learning courses, unless anybody has questions.
Kelly, there's no questions in the chat right now, but Christy did link the flyer in there also.
Oh,
that
wonderful.
includes the link and everything. So again, that'll be included in the follow-up, but in case anyone's really eager to see it right now, it's right there too.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Well, then let's just take a closer look at some of the other resources that are available with our membership. And then I'll talk a little bit more about the trainers and the efforts to support implementation of the resources. So I'm going to check our time. We're doing good on time. I'll take a breath because I feel like I'm talking really fast. Everybody take a breath. It feels good. Okay. So one of the other resources, and this is one of the courses that you take, and there are things that you can print that go along with that course. It's called Making Connections. This is a comprehensive resource that offers suggestions, tools, and sample plans for teachers who use the early childhood indicators of progress, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with. They're Minnesota's early learning standards. And so one of the benefits of working with WIDA early years is that they actually took our state standards and plugged them into this resource specifically for the state of Minnesota, which I feel like is just so helpful. So when you're looking at it as an early educator and you're trying to make those connections to how does this apply to the expectations that we have, you have the actual Minnesota Early Childhood Indicators of Progress in there. And so what I really like about this resource is that it helps raise awareness about the considerations needed when planning instruction for young multilingual children using standards. And it introduces the concepts of a language-focused approach to planning instruction. And it provides an introductory overview to the key WIDA early years resources and offers suggestions, tools, and sample plans, like I said, to help teachers make that connection between the early years resources and their state standards. The National Association for the Education of Young Children says this: to promote equity for multilingual children, it is vital for educators to take intentional steps in the planning of their instruction to ensure it is developmentally, culturally, and linguistically appropriate. And embracing the WIDA can-do mindset or asset-based thinking is a necessary element of a language-focused approach. And remember, this approach centers on all that multilingual children can do with their language, including their home language and English. And by focusing on what multilingual children can do with language, we send a powerful message that honors the various languages children are learning. This resource is rich with features that early educators can use, from investigating the guiding principles of language development in multilingual learners to identifying key language uses in your setting and reviewing examples of the language-focused planning tool. Educators can apply their learning to daily planning for robust and meaningful learning experiences in the early childhood setting. I love that they use like real teacher examples. I think it's so helpful to help us really visualize what this looks like and what it means when we're working in classrooms. So I think it's really a wonderful resource. All right. The next resource that I want to tell you about is the Promising Practices Implementation Kit. And this resource gives programs and educators a complete picture of the essential actions and how educators, families, and administrators might put these actions into practice. This kit includes a needs assessment for individual educators, and this can be used to inform individual goal setting with staff members and help coaches think about areas that could be focused on. The implementation checklist gives programs an opportunity to reflect on their current practices and seek next steps in building the capacity of educators and families so that they can help them work effectively together and meet the needs of the learners. Included in this is the companion guide, and it's a helpful tool for determining where to begin. We kind of talked about that when I showed you that sample pathway. And it helps you to take into consideration the results of your assessments and your approach to professional learning and the coaching resources that you have available. And then the Promising Practices demonstrates the significant role families play as a partner in their child's educational experiences. So there's also a family assessment that you can use to help gather information about their perceptions of your program and the education that's happening. And it has engagement strategies and reflection questions throughout the kit that provide educators and administrators with meaningful ways to connect with family members. And in the learning course that talks about the promising practices, one of the tips that they had that I thought was such a good idea too was, instead of just handing over this questionnaire to families, actually having a liaison or having somebody that knows their language actually sit down and complete it with them. And I thought, what a great relationship building opportunity that would be too, right? Like so often I think we just hand things to people, but being able to sit down and walk through it and talk about the questions, I think would be just a marvelous way to do that. This guide also provides tips on making sense of the data that you've collected and helping to form a plan of action. So you can see these tools are really comprehensive. So I'm just so excited to talk about this. The other resource that's in there is the Are We Ready guide, and that promotes collaboration, like I said before, between ECE professionals and K-3 educators and offers recommendations for supporting multilingual children and families as they transition from early childhood settings into kindergarten. And this really aligns well with a lot of the P3 work that we've been doing throughout the state. And so we're really excited about that. And the webinar that's included in here, there's a webinar and a guide that's built around 4 unifying themes. And these themes emerged from 2 WIDA publications, the Essential Actions for K-12 Educators, and then the Promising Practices for Early Childhood Educators. So it's kind of like bringing those things together. The first theme is establish and sustain relationships that are respectful, collaborative, and reciprocal in nature. The second theme is know the children and use their cultural and linguistic assets to support learning. The third theme is design and deliver instruction that is developmentally, culturally, and linguistically responsive. And the fourth theme is establish and sustain environments that invite, welcome, and support children's dynamic language practices. And each theme is presented, and the question, are we ready, is directed at 3 different audiences. So there's the district level administrators, the school level leaders, and the classroom educators. And we really want to invite people to reflect on local practices and use the tools in this resource to have meaningful dialogue and create the supportive change that's needed to meet the needs of multilingual learners. And this resource and its approach to 3 different audiences is an excellent tool to begin or continue those guided conversations in your community with your school partners. All right. And I just wanted to point out, like, that page that you see on the screen is kind of is a sample of one of the observation tools that's in there. All right. I'm going to see any questions. Let people have time to ask questions about that. I just put a lot of stuff out there.
Kelly, you might be getting to this later, but if anyone has, there's all these great documents and tools and resources. If anyone has questions about how these work together or tips or tricks, would they contact you, or where would they go for more support on that?
That is a great question. Yep. And I am just going to start talking about our WIDA ambassador and the trainers. So thank you. What a great lead in. So when we think about the WIDA early years resources and working with multilingual learners, we really can't think of this as kind of like an add-on to what you're doing, or a silo, like one educator's job, or it's just a learning center in your classroom. It really has to be an integral part of the daily work that folks are doing in early education classrooms and settings and programs. And so language learning and support can be successfully embedded into the child's learning experiences and provide rich and meaningful opportunities to use all the linguistic resources that a child has available to them. And so to assist people and programs in training and coaching and providing support, we have pulled together a group of specialists. This is our training cohort, or our support specialists, who are available to work with you and your program. And so I have a link on here to support request questionnaire. So that would be a place where you can, it's a survey that you can put your program information in, questions you have, or additional resources support that you're looking for. And specifically, this information is going to be shared with Cindy, our WIDA ambassador. And Cindy's role in working with the trainers and the support specialists is to really help identify, take the program needs and match them to trainers that she thinks are going to be a good fit for trying to meet those needs. And also, I would say that Cindy is a good resource, just like you said, Nikki, for thinking about how to utilize these resources, what might be a good pathway. I think within the resources themselves, you're going to find that there's a lot of support for helping programs answer those questions too, especially when you look at some of the self-assessment tools that are available to you. But Cindy has shared her email and her phone number there. So if people do have questions, you certainly can reach out to me too. But I will say that Cindy has a lot more experience with the WIDA early years resources and has had extensive WIDA training. So she's a very good resource person. but hopefully, yeah, we can answer those questions. And then one thing to think about too is as we are working with programs and as we continue to explore these resources with the trainers, we're really trying to come up with different ways that will help meet program needs. So if you have thoughts or ideas or, like this would be a great way, this is what we would love to see happen in our program, we want to encourage people to share that because we're kind of, developing this as we go. And we really want it to be informed by the needs of the people, in the programs and the educators working with the young learners. And if you are finding that there's trainers that really are going to match what your needs are, we encourage people. Cindy can help share their information, and then you can set up contracts with folks that way. That could be a contract between you and the trainer. Another thing that we're looking at too is trying to maybe come up with some training that we can also put into develop that these trainers, that some of the develop approved trainers could then be able to go out and train on too. So interested to hear people's feedback on all of that as well. All right. Am I doing okay on time, Nikki? Okay. All right. I just wanted to share with you about the next WIDA Early Years webinar that we have coming out. And so we're kind of doing a second kickoff. We kind of we started the membership with WIDA in October, and we have a full year before we would look at renewing that membership again. And so, like I said before, we had that initial kickoff webinar in October. And it was very well attended, and it was wonderful. But we also recognized that this fall things were, it's still a crazy time of year, and with COVID things have been unpredictable, and people's capacity for absorbing new information is at all different places. And so we wanted to do another kickoff now, just to kind of reintroduce the information out to folks and see where people are at. And so we will be doing another kickoff in February on the 23rd from 2 to 3:30, and these are recorded, and again you'll be able to access them by creating that account if you're not able to register and attend live. But this one we're going to do a little bit more connecting with the trainers and the support specialists, and there will be time for breakout sessions to actually talk, like I said, to talk with them and to kind of share ideas and really give each other feedback and hopefully learn even more about the resources that are available. So I welcome everybody to either attend or access that webinar in the WIDA portal. All right. Another thing that I wanted to make sure to point out was some of those resources on the webpage. And so when you access the Multilingual Learners webpage on the Early Learning Services section of the MDE website, you will find all of the information that I've talked about here, the links to the WIDA portal, those develop links, all of that stuff. But additionally, we do have some other resources that were developed prior to my time at MDE, but with preschool development grant funds. And so there are a number of tip sheets that are available for educators, and then tip sheets for parents that have children that are multilingual learners. And those are available in different languages as well. And so they can be downloaded and distributed to families. So I just want to make sure people were aware of that. I'm not sure how many people are aware of that. You'll also see I put in several links here. There's also a link to the English Learner Education part of the MDE website that kind of talks more in depth about state statute and some of the rules and things like that that apply probably more to school district folks. But if if you're working in partnership with school districts as you're working on transition things and that sort of stuff, I think it's helpful to have that information. Or if you're working in a mixed delivery type of program, I just wanted people to be able to know where that information was. And again, all those links are kind of connected to the WIDA K-12 resources for doing assessments on English language learners for identification for services. In Minnesota, multilingual learners in state-approved voluntary pre-K and School Readiness Plus programs can be identified for additional English learner support. And so that's, if you're working in partnership with a program, one of those programs, those resources are there for you as well. I think I covered everything on that page. All right. And then I have a few more slides that we've included in here that are very specific to early childhood screening. And again, I just wanted to add these in case that is applicable to the program that you're working in. And if you're working in partnership, and and I know often, Head Start programs do some screening, and other early childhood programs are encouraging students to go into screening. And so this information just is about specifically dual language learners and early childhood screening. And so I will just put that in there for your resource. I'm not going to read it all for you, but if anybody has any questions, let me know. So there's information that talks about just why it's best to do screening in the native languages and how to support that. And then this is information on the laws around that. And then some resources for dual language learning screening tools. And then lastly, I just wanted to make sure and point this out. This came from our special education department. And just as a reminder, just for us to remember that preschool age children are not required to undergo and fail a response to intervention process prior to referral for evaluation for special education services. And that early intervention aspects of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act clearly indicates that response to intervention may not be used to delay appropriate evaluation of a child suspected of having a disability or delay the provision of services, and that response to intervention models may not replace a comprehensive evaluation. And then also just to remember that a child's status as a multilingual learner should not prevent or prompt referrals to early childhood special education when developmental concerns are present. And then if you have any questions specifically about special education services for young children, there's the email for the ECSE folks at MDE. All right. Okay, I think that's all I have, unless there's other questions that people have. How am I doing on time? Am I good?
Yeah, you're right on. Thanks, Kelly.
Awesome.
So just want to, again, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, anything, feel free to type it in the chat or raise your hand or make some action, and we'll go ahead and take you off mute so that you can make those comments or questions. There's a lot of information shared, so I think sometimes we just have to process. So
right. Yeah, and my email's there available too. And so if people have questions or feedback or any information that you think will be helpful as we move forward and continue to support this work in the state, I would love to hear from you. So don't hesitate to send me an email.
Thanks, Katie. We're so glad you could join us today. Yeah, this is a new topic for so many people, so you might be more reflective like me and come up with your questions a little bit later. And that's okay too.
Awesome. Yeah, and if anybody has any difficulty creating their account or getting into their account, the WIDA early years people have their information right on the website too. The help desk people are absolutely phenomenal for trying to help people with logging in and creating accounts, because that can get to be confusing too. And always, you're welcome to send me an email too, and I will do the best I can to help. So we want to make sure that as many people that want access to these resources are getting them, because the more, the better.
Absolutely. I see Rhonda said in the chat, this is great information to share with programs we work with. Thank you. Thank you, Rhonda, for sharing information with your programs.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you all for the hard work that you're doing and just everything you do to support early childhood and early learners. Very appreciated.
All right, well, in the next few days, I'll send everybody the recording of this webinar along with the PowerPoint. So you can go ahead and take a look at that. Feel free to share it. I think with that, we'll just go ahead and sign off for today. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a good day.